The Detroit Lions are on their quest to appear in their first Super Bowl, and we're going to need all the help we can get. Last year, we were depleted on the defensive line. This year, we are depleted in the secondary. And it seems like Brad Holmes is not really going to make any trades during the NFL trade deadline. And if he does, it might be a lower tier move. But with all the injuries in our secondary, we may have assumed that the Detroit Lions might make a trade for a secondary player, with Kirby Joseph being hobbled and the injury to DJ Reed. He's probably going to be out to late November, early December. Then you've got Terrion Arnold, who's making progress, went from potentially season ending to potentially IR to now missing 4 practices. And realistically could play after the bye week. He might even play on Sunday. I'm not sure about that. No word yet. That should come out any minute now. But so I don't know if the Detroit Lions are going to do anything. Now, the question that I have for you is, and we've been talking about this for at least the last 2 seasons, November 2023 and November 2024. Are the Detroit Lions going to make a Super Bowl caliber type move, an all-in type move, a move that says, hey, we think we can win the Super Bowl and we think we can do it this year? Now, you guys know how I feel. I feel like 2023 was our year. I feel like we were a pass rusher opposite Aiden Hutchinson away from winning our first Super Bowl. I think if we have a Trey Hendrickson, a Myles Garrett, something like that, as unrealistic as it may be, if we have somebody who can actually impact the game outside of Aiden, I think we win the game against the San Francisco 49ers. They do not come back from a 17-point deficit. We go on to beat the Kansas City Chiefs that were not the Kansas City Chiefs of old, and we beat them to start the season. So I think the season would have began and end with Chiefs versus Lions, with the Lions not only appearing in their first Super Bowl, but winning it. This is how I feel based on the numbers, and I will not get off it, right? So that's just where I am. And after 4 years of constantly talking about the same thing, there is nothing anybody can say that will change my mind. That's just point blank, period. So you can comment all you want. It's not going to change. If you clicked on this video, that's all on you. You know exactly what you're going to get when you come to one of my videos, right? And it's all about the pass rush to me. Between everything Brad has put into the secondary resources in the offseason and during the season, the secondary compared to the defensive line, there's no comparison. Resources spent. There's no comparison. And then when you do spend resources, you trade up for a guy that doesn't even make your team in his 3rd season. You all know who that is. And ironically, that guy was on the team that just beat us last week. How crazy is that? So we finally got a asking price for Trey Hendrickson. And I think that along with the Cincinnati Bengals are in purgatory right now. They are now 3-4 after starting 2-0. They lost their starting quarterback. They dropped 4 games in a row, and the Steelers let them beat them yesterday. They let them trade it. Just the Cleveland Browns. I know this is not about the Cleveland Browns, but just the AFC North is kind of dumb, man. Like, okay, the Cleveland Browns decide to get rid of Baker Mayfield because it was all on him. Then they decide to hold Myles Garrett hostage and throw a bunch of money at him, all right, which I guess nobody would turn down. Then you trade a quarterback, the first time since 1974 that a quarterback has been traded in division. And then that quarterback comes back and wins the game and basically puts the team that he traded for that traded for him back into contention while you are looking at a top 5 draft pick. I mean, when it comes to like Andrew Berry, Brad Holmes is truly the GOAT. Like, real talk. There's no even denying that. I just want this man to bring us our first Super Bowl. That's all I'm saying. All right. And maybe he will, maybe he won't. We'll see. So we finally got the asking price for Trey Hendrickson. I think is quite intriguing, and we'll discuss it a little further. Here is what Ian Rappaport had to say yesterday. This is prior to the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's what he had to say.
All-Pro Trey Hendrickson, Ian, is out tonight with that hip injury, and his name has come up in trade rumors. What are you hearing on his health and future here in Cincinnati?
Well, we'll start with the hip injury. My understanding is the MRI came back relatively clean, just too quick to be able to come back tonight, but no major injury for Hendrickson. That is very good news. As far as on the trade front, this is very unlike the Cincinnati Bengals, if they continue to lose, to have some sort of a fire sale. That said, teams are going to call. I would expect Hendrickson to be a big-time trade target. As far as what it might take, what I am told is a young player who would help the Bengals this year and into the future, and a future mid-round pick. if the Bengals are even willing to do it. By the way, one other Bengals note, Cam Taylor.
All right, so you heard it there, that what it would take. So this is, again, prior to yesterday's game. The Cincinnati Bengals were 4-2. They would have gone, if they would have lost yesterday, they would have gone 3.5 games back out of first place. But because they beat the Steelers, they are now a game and a half out of first place. So you guys wonder why I get so upset over one game. That's why. One game wind up it was essentially 2 games, as far as you go from a win makes you 1.5 game back, a loss, you are now 3.5 games back, right? So now the Cincinnati Bengals may have just saved their season. They may have just saved their season, and all this might be a moot point. But you've got to look at the Cincinnati Bengals. They do not trade at the deadline. But I think whether they're going to get Joe Burrow back, make the playoffs, whatever the situation, your defense is terrible. You're not going to win a Super Bowl. You're not going to do it. This is not the defense that even got them to the Super Bowl in 2021. So cut ties. If they were a smart organization, they would cut ties with Trey. Trey is not going to be a Cincinnati Bengal unless they plan on franchising tagging him. And I don't know in that contract kind of stipulation that he signed, does that mean that he is going to, like, he has a no franchise tags stipulation? Like Danielle Hunter a few years ago, when he signed that 1 year kind of renegotiated deal, he put in his contract that he could not be franchise tagged the year after that. So I don't know if Trey did anything like that, but the Cincinnati Bengals would be wise to let this man go and let him go to a different team. Get something for him. Get that player that could help you this season and get some future compensation. That just would be the smart thing to do, but they are not the smartest organization. They have been to 3 Super Bowls, winning none, but they are not the smartest organization. You could argue that it was smarter to take Penei Sewell over Jamar Chase, but, you know, they've been to a Super Bowl. Their quarterback has been demolished. They didn't win it, and they're still the same organization that they were. Like, it's just, anyway, so we'll see what they wind up doing. But let's take a look and see how realistic it is that the Detroit Lions are, or any team for that matter, are going to be able to get their hands on Trey Hendrickson. Now, this is coming from NFL.com. All right, so here is the next 2 games for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, first of all, the NFL did a phenomenal job pushing the trade deadline back, because that makes things so much more interesting. Because if it weren't for that trade deadline being pushed back, the Bengals probably wouldn't sail. Again, no matter what happens, they're not going to do anything. They're not, unless you're going to win a Super Bowl, there's no reason to keep hold of Trey, right? That would be the only reason you kept him, if you think you could legit make some noise in the playoffs. So you got the New York Jets, who are, to this point in the season, heading into week 7, are winless. By the way, Aaron Glenn is going to keep his job the rest of the season and the offseason. If they go 0-17, I don't know how any person can keep their job. That's just, I mean, especially when you inherit a team that's not as terrible as the one you currently have. So for me, and then you have the Chicago Bears, who are playing pretty decent football. They are now 3-2. They started off 0-2, and they have gone 3-0. They've gone 3-0. The Chicago, just realized that the Chicago Bears have they gone 3-0? Whatever it is, I think they're above 500. So there's a good chance that the Cincinnati Bengals could be any number of these combinations. They could be 3-6, not winning another game in the next 2 weeks. Is it likely that the Jets finally beat them or get a win against them? I don't know, right? We saw what happened yesterday with the Bengals versus Steelers. So a game could be desperate, ready, just giving it all they have, or they're out there playing for nothing, right? They're playing for pride and stuff and win games. So and then you would take the Chicago Bears. Now, all right, so the Cincinnati Bengals are 3-4. They could be one of these combinations. They could win their next 2 and be 5-4. They could split their next 2 and be 4-5, or they could lose their next 2 and be 3-6. I don't know if anything but 3-6 would tell the Cincinnati Bengals to have a fire sale, because it's already been established that Joe Burrow may just be able to come back in the middle of December. And we know the Cincinnati Bengals, if they have any chance of getting into the playoffs, they will not part with any player. Plus, again, I don't even know, but it's been a long time since the Cincinnati Bengals were sellers, like at the trade deadline, that they make trade deadline trades. So I don't know how realistic this is, but again, if you're a smart organization, you know you're not going to do anything. You're trying to hold on until your quarterback comes back. Now, here's something that we have to consider as well. So let's look. We already established the next 2 games. So the trade deadline is November 4th. They play the Jets their next game, which is in 9 days, and then they play the Chicago Bears. Trade deadline happens, so this is something else that they have to consider being the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's say that they are 5-4, or they're still in it. They're 4-5. They're like, Joe Burrow, we're hanging on to Joe Burrow, him coming back. What can we do? The Pittsburgh Steelers, this one's going to be in Pittsburgh. So you got this game. The New England Patriots are playing better than anyone expected, right? Then you have the Baltimore Ravens, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, the Miami Dolphins, the Arizona Cardinals, the Cleveland Browns. So you legitimately could be in contention, playoff contention, but you're not talking about winning the division. You're not talking about, but at this point, it's between them and really right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Lamar Jackson is coming back, so it's a lot to go. I don't know if the next 2 weeks is going to determine if the Cincinnati Bengals believe that they are sellers. I don't know. So I think the win last night, honestly, may have just, in Cincinnati's eyes, taken the trade off the table. Now, let's look at, I noticed something, and I had to watch it a couple times because I didn't peep this last night when I heard it initially, that Ian Rappaport said that the Cincinnati Bengals are looking for, quote, a young player who can help them this year and in the future, and a future pick, right? I don't know if the Detroit Lions realistically have anybody to part with. I don't. So let's take a look at the Detroit Lions roster. Who could or who would you give up in order to acquire Trey Hendrickson at the trade deadline? He would be a half-year rental, and this is saying, hey, we are going to the Super Bowl. We're not going to be responsible for his $30 million. We would probably be responsible for half that, maybe a third to half of that, and then we're not going to have his services next year. Now, on the plus side, if Trey Hendrickson does walk, which he probably would, we are most likely to get a compensatory pick when he signs his deal. So that is a plus side, right? So a mid-round pick for the future, a future round pick. They didn't necessarily specify 2026. Could it be 2027 when the Detroit Lions have more picks? Or do they want it to be this year? All right. But let's take a look. So it's a lot of wiggle room in there, but here's the Detroit Lions roster. Now, of course, we're not getting rid DJ Reader, not a future pick. We're not getting rid of any of these guys. David Montgomery, Alexander Zaloni. You start to look at people that we could part with, and they're old. They're not young. Jamison Williams, absolutely not, right? He just signed a deal. But they didn't specify whether they wanted the player to be on defense, according to Ian, the source. They didn't say they wanted to be a defensive player. They just said a young player who can help them this year. Amik Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Kirby Joseph. Right now, I'm not seeing anybody. Terrion Arnold, right? That's not going to happen. Tyleek is not going to happen. Sam Laporta, right? I don't think that's going to happen either. So you're talking about young players. Derek Barnes. Could Derek Barnes be somebody? Would you part ways with Derek Barnes? Because he just signed, a 3-year deal, something like that? So he's relatively young, 26, mid-20s. Would you be willing to part ways with Derek Barnes, who is under contract, I think, for the next 2 seasons after this one, for a rental Trey Hendrickson? You're not going to do Brian Branch. Grant Stewart, I don't think he even has... He has no... Now, even if the Detroit Lions were to trade somebody, I don't think the contract necessarily has to be for the future. Meaning, I don't think he has to be committed to the Bengals with the trade. Maybe they can convince him to stay after the season is over. But again, a lot of kind of like leeway in that dialogue or that language about what they're looking for. Coyote, Isaac Tesla, absolutely not. Al-Qadim Muhammad, he's not young. He's also not under contract after this year. Craig Reynolds, Kyle Allen. Right now, I'm not seeing anybody that could lure or be enticing to the Detroit Lions. Mekhi Wingo, the dude can't even stay healthy. Mahogany, Thomas Harper, Dominic Levitt, right? I'm looking at these guys and I'm like, yo, what are we talking about? We don't have anybody that we could part ways with. I mean, maybe Derek Barnes. After that list, I can't even talk. That list, I don't see anybody that would be, if I'm a Cincinnati Bengals, I'm like, no. So maybe the Detroit Lions could be like, yo, we'll give you, maybe they could change a player to a pick. We got 2 6th-round picks, I believe. We do have a 4th-round pick. So maybe they're like, look, yo, we'll give you a 4th round and a 6th-rounder. You give us Trey and something back, right? Trey and a I don't know, Trey and a, I don't know. I don't know what could kind of offset that. So we don't have anybody. So the question that I have for you is, what would you be willing to part ways with? Would you be willing to part ways with Derek Barnes for Trey Hendrickson on a Derek is committed for years to come? Young, 26, Trey Hendrickson, you're getting him on a loaner. It's likely you'll get a compensatory pick when he walks in, but it won't be until the 2027 season, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot to weigh, but we're in a point now that he might not get moved at all, because the Bengals are just that organization. And if they have any type of inkling that they can hang in this thing and make a legit push and buy enough time for their quarterback to come back, then they're not going to sell. But again, to me, unless you're going to win the Super Bowl, it makes no sense to try to keep hold of anything. They might not have to have a fire sale, but you mean to tell me, like, you're going to need more? First of all, your defense is suspect. Trey Hendrickson is not going to be there after this year. So it would make whether or not you make a push or not, unless you consider, like you have a Super Bowl winning team, which they do not. Let's say, unless you know or you're confident that you're going to win the Super Bowl, it makes no sense to keep hold of Trey Hendrickson, because you could use whatever draft capital you got to build that team, like the Lions did with the Stafford trade. Build that team to actually be a legit Super Bowl contender, because right now they are a Super Bowl contender with Joe Burrow. Like, not even a Super Bowl contender. They're a playoff contender with a division winner with Joe Burrow. You take him away, they're not. When they went to the Super Bowl, they had a completely different team. DJ Reed, Sam Hubbard, who retired, he was there. DJ Reader was there. You had a couple cornerbacks and stuff that were there, linebackers that were there. So the team was different. So I don't know, but the asking price, according to Ian Rappaport, for Trey Hendrickson is a young player, not defense or offense specific, that can help them this year and potentially the future, and a mid-round pick. For us, that's that 4th-round pick. So maybe a 4th and Trey for Derek Barnes and something else. If they'll take Mekhi Wingo, I mean, he hurt, but I don't even think you would move him. But, I mean, that's it. That's it. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know, but I'm sure a deal could be made if the Cincinnati Bengals actually want to part. If not, I mean, it is possible. I hear that the Dallas Cowboys are in the running for him, that the San Francisco 49ers in the running for him, the Washington Commanders are in the running for him. I mean, we're getting to the point. If you gave us the LA Rams, their Super Bowl winning season, they traded for Stafford. They signed Von Miller. They signed Odell Beckham Jr., who was killing the Bengals that first half in the Super Bowl. They made just enough moves, starting with their quarterback, to win a Super Bowl. And it came down to basically one play. Jalen Ramsey was wide, got burned. He got absolutely smoked by Jamar Chase. But Aaron Donald changed that game. Aaron Donald helped win that Super Bowl. So it came down, even with all those moves, it came down to that one moment that really solidified the Super Bowl, the 3-point win for the Rams. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think the win yesterday by the Bengals puts the nail in the coffin for Trey Hendrickson? I think with the Bengals yesterday and the fact that they could legitimately be, I mean, they're in. If the Pittsburgh Steelers start losing a few, with the way that the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns have 2 wins combined, they could they could win the division. Like, and all of a sudden Joe Burrow is back. So I don't know, man. I think this might put the nail in the coffin for Trey. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This channel is made possible by viewers, subscribers, and members just like you. It's because of your support I get to do what I do. You could be anywhere else on YouTube, but you choose to rock with me. You guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions. The Trey Hendrickson stuff will stop when he signs a deal with his new team.